With 3 successful movies in a row, it seems like Illumination were well on their way to becoming big shots in the animation industry. But before they could capitalize on original material like they did with Hop and to a lesser extent the Lorax, they first decided to go back to their roots and made a sequel to the movie that started it all with Despicable Me 2. Sometime after the first movie, Gru has fully hung up his villain cape and has become a devoted family man to his 3 daughters. Soon though, he is offered a job as a field agent for the Anti-Villain League, who are searching for a mysterious baddie who stole an experimental serum. Gru is partnered with the quirky Lucy Wilde and soon, they begin to develop a romance. Gru suspects that a charismatic Mexican restaurant owner named Eduardo Perez might be a presumably deceased villain named El Macho and believes he might be the one who stole the serum. While all of this is going on, Gru's minions get taken by this mysterious criminal and injects them with the serum, which turns them into unstoppable killing machines. Development of the second Despicable Me started after the unexpected financial success of the first movie. In June of 2011, Universal said that the sequel would be released in July of 2013. Chris Meledandri confirmed in February of 2012 that they began working on the film. Some ideas that were thought up for Despicable Me 2 were that the minions would gain superpowers, an idea we will come back to later in another part of this history, so the filmmakers went with them being turned into vicious purple monsters. In lieu of that, Lucy would have a pet dog that she constantly carried around, a different version of the ending with Gru and Lucy's wedding, Eduardo's son, Antonio, saving her during the final battle, and the biggest change of all that actually occurred. When the movie was in its advertising stage was that Eduardo, who, spoiler alert if you never saw the film, actually is El Macho, was going to be voiced by Al Pacino, but he backed out due to creative differences with the filmmakers and, as said before, his name was advertised in the trailers because the film was in post-production, so a month before the film came out. Spanish-American actor Benjamin Bratt took up the role as El Macho, but it has gotten to the point where he wasn't advertised. One thing to note here is that Illumination brought back Kristen Wiig, who voiced Miss Hattie in the first film, to voice Lucy.
Edith! What did you put on my desk?
You know, you really should announce your weapons after you fire them, Mr.
This would also be the final Despicable Me piece of media for the voice of Agnes, Elsie Fisher, most likely due to her hitting puberty. For the animation, much like movie number 1, Illumination's Paris-based branch MacGuff handled said animation by using Autodesk Maya, and over 400 artists worked on Despicable Me 2, which is 300 times more the team of artists who worked on the first film. One of the biggest challenges that the animators faced was creating visual effects for things like water and jelly, which led to some of the drives from the studio crashing and needing to be replaced. For the film's music, composers Heitor Pereira and Pharrell Williams joined forces to create the score, and the soundtrack to the film was released on July 2, 2013 through Backlot Music. The album featured 8 songs for the feature, which consisted of 3 original songs, including Happy by Williams, which was the only single, and 5 incorporated tracks, and released 5 months after the film came out in November of 2013 and was accompanied by a 24-hour music video upon its release, which was a first for any known movie, and the video received a viral response, which contributed to the song's global success since it managed to top the charts in over 19 countries, became the best-selling song in both the USA and the United Kingdom, with over 1.5 and 6.45 million copies sold in the following year of 2014, and was also nominated for Best Original Song at the 86th Academy Awards. The soundtrack also got some praise of its own, like how it debuted at US Billboard 200 at number 86, was featured at the Independent Albums at number 19 and the top 3 charts of top soundtracks, and was listed in Official Charts Company's compilation chart at number 48 and Soundtracks chart at number 8.
God, let it die.
Despicable Me 2 premiered in Australia on June 5, 2013, before being theatrically released in the United States nearly a month later on July 3rd. The movie received generally positive reviews from critics, who praised the movie's animation and comedy, with an approval rating of 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. Reviewers like Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune gave the film 2.5 stars out of 4, and proclaimed that Steve Carell's Slavic inflections as Gru do the trick, as before. Wig's clever hesitations and comic timing helped save the day. The film earned $368 million in North America and $602.7 million in other countries, gaining a worldwide total of $971 million. It was the third highest grossing film of 2013, coming between Marvel's Iron Man 3 and Disney's Frozen. It was also nominated for 2 awards at the 86th Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature and Best Original Song, 2 Critics' Choice Movie Awards, a British Academy Film Award, and a Golden Globe Award. The movie was released on digital download on November 26th, a few months later, before getting released on Blu-ray and DVD on December 10th the following month. Special features in the DVD included audio commentary, behind-the-scenes featurettes, deleted scenes, short films starring the Minions like Puppy, Panic in the Mailroom, and Training Wheels, and a visit to Illumination Studios' Paris branch. The DVD would be re-released in 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray in 2017. Getting into my personal thoughts about Despicable Me 2, well, I actually liked it better than the first and thought that it had better story pacing and better scenes than in the first film. I'm a little confused on why they brought back Kristen Wiig though instead of hiring a new voice. They probably just like Wiig too much to replace her. I don't disapprove of the casting, I'm just a little confused by it. Despicable Me 2 is definitely better than the first and is one of my favorite movies from both Illumination and this franchise as a whole. Little did I know that this was the start of the filmmakers deciding to milk the franchise out of much money as they possibly can. Now, what do I mean when I said that the franchise will be milked? Well, now may be a good time to talk about the Despicable Me spin-off, Minions. Set long before they ever served under Gru, the Minions were once a band of creatures who would hop around from master to master since they had a habit of screwing things up that would lead to the death of the villains they were working for. Eventually, they decided to live in isolation inside a giant ice cave, but the resulting idle life ends up wearing on them. So 3 minions named Kevin, Stuart, and Bob venture out to find a master to serve, which leads them to New York in the late 1960s where they attend a convention for villains and happen upon a very capable supervillain named Scarlet Overkill, who plots to take over the Kingdom of England. Now, going back into Despicable Me 2 for a minute, if you saw the film from start to finish, you might be aware of a certain credit scene where the Minions would hold auditions for their spin-off. Well, in Minions, although the audition features the exact 3 Minions, some changes to their design were slightly made, like Bob's eye color is more clear into the teaser. Getting into the making of the Minions film, development for it began in July of 2012 after writer Brian Lynch saw the popularity of the simulator ride in Universal Studios Hollywood, Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. Pierre Coffin again took on the role as the film's director with a newcomer named Kyle Balda who was the film's co-director, which makes Minions the first movie in the Despicable Me franchise where Chris Renault is not the director. The first 2 films director Eric Gillen returned but as a character and production designer. Speaking of which, Kevin, Stuart, and Bob were designed to resemble Margot, Edith, and Agnes from the Despicable Me movies, most likely to make them more endearing. Some of the words within the Minions language were taken from Indonesian like Terima kasih, which means thank you, Kemari, which means come here, and Yang Mulia, which means your highness, alongside countless others. This is mostly on account of Pierre Coffin's mother, I.D. Dini, being of Indonesian descent. For the cast, character actress Sandra Bullock joined the movie in February of 2013 as the voice of Scarlet Overkill and was paid $10 million for her contribution, with actor John Hamm joining her 2 months after as her husband Herb. Other factors about Bullock involving this movie is that Scarlet Overkill is her first villain role and that this was her second animated feature in 17 years after her role as Miriam in the DreamWorks film, The Prince of Egypt. The last cast member to join was Allison Janney as Mrs. Nelson in March 2015, 4 months before the film was released. Pierre Coffin reprised his role as the Minions. Since Pierre Coffin usually voices the entirety of the Minions, this is one of the movies in the franchise where he is the leading actor and he has voiced all 899 Minions within the film.
Come on, that's a high percent.
Taking a minute to talk about the marketing, Bloomberg News estimated that Universal Pictures spent $593 million promoting the feature, including $26.1 million on TV commercials. Bloomberg News described the marketing as the largest and most comprehensive within the distributor's history. It also had at least 850 toy brands and promoting partners that included McDonald's, Chiquita, and General Mills. In April of 2015, the color company Pantone announced the creation of a new official color called Minion Yellow. Titan Comics even published a series of comic books and graphic novels based on the movie throughout June of 2015. The official soundtrack for Minions was released on July 10, 2015, by Backlot Music. The soundtrack also features the movie's original music, which was composed by Aitor Pereira. Minions was released in London on June 11, 2015 before getting released in America on the aforementioned date that the film's soundtrack was released, July 10th. Did it receive the same amount of praise as the first two Despicable Me films? Well, not really. It received mixed reviews from critics, who praised the voice acting, animation, and music score, but gave criticism to the character development and comedy, which was labeled as unfunny and inappropriate. It also got a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the website declaring that the Minions' brightly colored brand of gibberish-fueled insanity stretches to feature length in their self-titled Despicable Me spin-off, with uneven but often hilarious results. Even Coffin himself expressed his dissatisfaction on how the final film turned out. Yeah, the voice of the Minions and the one who has any authority on how the movie turns out found that the movie starring the characters who he voices not to his liking. Despite all of that though, the film did well financial-wise, as it managed to gross out $1.159 billion worldwide, finishing its theatrical run as the fifth highest grossing film of 2015 and the second highest grossing animated movie of all time, falling just behind once again Disney's Frozen. It also became the highest grossing film produced by Illumination for a few years. A few months later, as a promotional tie-in, the mobile game Minions Paradise, created by EA Salt Lake and published by EA Mobile, was released on October 13th. Universal Pictures Home Entertainment released the movie for digital download on November 24th and on Blu-ray and DVD on December 8th, a couple of weeks later. Physical copies contain behind-the-scenes featurettes, an interactive world map, short films Crow Minion, Competition, and Binky Nelson Unpacified, and a deleted scene. Minions was the best-selling home video release in December of 2015. Blu-ray accounted for 67% of its sales, alongside the home media release of the Marvel film Ant-Man. By the end of 2015, the DVD releases had managed to gross about $95.7 million. A 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray version of Minions was released 2 years later in 2017. Getting into my personal thoughts with the movie, I thought it was decent and actually worth a few watches. It's not my favorite in the Despicable Me franchise, but it certainly is a welcome addition. Minions is alright both as a film and as a spin-off, but I wouldn't say it's in the same league as the Despicable Me films because on their own, the Minions are just goofballs without a voice of reason balance things out. A year later, Illumination finally decided to try something original with The Secret Life of Pets. It's the story of a Jack Russell named Max who lives a content life with his owner Katie. One day, Katie adopts a larger dog named Duke who Max grows to dislike and feel jealous of. Eventually, Max and Duke's fighting gets them lost in New York City where they make enemies out of a band of abandoned former pets, led by the crazed rabbit Snowball. As Max and Duke strive to make it home, Max's dog neighbor who has a crush on him, Gidget, rounds up Max's fellow pets to find him. Chris Renault first became involved with the making of this movie back in 2012, while he was still working on Despicable Me 2. During that time, Chris Meledandri pitched him an idea for a movie about what pets do when their owners aren't around. Although Chris was drawn to the idea, he and his team didn't know how to form the story. One idea that was worked on by Cinco Paul and Ken Dorio was giving the movie a murder mystery theme. Compared to films like Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, with the dog witnessing the murder, and since he is unable to tell what happened to his owner, he and his fellow pets attempt to resolve the issue themselves. However, when director Brian Lynch came to work on the film, he recalled watching early screen tests and felt that the film was getting pretty dark. As a result, his involvement transitioned the film's theme into more of a buddy comedy. Some concept art made by Eric Gillen revealed that the characters were going to have different designs. Like Max was going to be a yellow fox terrier and his owner Katie had ginger hair. Another idea for the movie that was made but not used, bizarrely enough, was the opening logo for Illumination, which featured a minion teasing a dog with a ball, but gets caught in the act by a group of dogs and is chased away.
No?
For the animation, the secondary characters were created by author Simon Rich, and the team took inspiration for French cartoonist Jean-Jacques Semp when creating the environment, and their attention was specifically paid to keep the designs very vertically oriented. In keeping with the legacy of old Warner Brothers cartoons, the owners' faces are only seen on occasion. The sewers where the flushed pets lived were created to hint at a darker side of owning a pet without getting too heavy, as well as to explore an unseen mythology in New York, while still maintaining the theme of pets. Like most of Illumination's films, the animation was created by Mac Guff. The film's music score was composed by Alexander Desplat, and the soundtrack was released on July 1, 2016, by Backlot Music. The film was supposed to be released on February 12, 2016, but was delayed for a few months. The Secret Life of Pets premiered at the 2016 Annecy International Animated Film Festival on June 16th and got screened at VidCon before it got a wider release less than a month later on July 8th and was released in 2D, 3D, and IMAX 3D using DMR. An animated short based on Despicable Me called Mower Minions, which featured the minions messing around with a lawnmower, was attached to the movie's theatrical release. The Secret Life of Pets got positive reviews from critics and got a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, and critics like Peter Travers of Rolling Stone gave the movie 3 out of 4 stars and proclaimed an animated fluffball. A sort of Toy Story with pets, does everything to drive you crazy and ends up being totally irresistible. Piggybacking on his statement, the movie has been relentlessly compared to the first 3 Toy Story films, with all 3 plots taking elements from each movie. Max and Duke's plot seems similar to the first Toy Story, where like Woody and Buzz, they would go on a journey to get back home. The plot of Gidget and the other pets would be like a story plot in Toy Story 2, where just like Andy's toys, they would go out to find their friend and bring him back home, and Snowball's villain arc brings to mind of Toy Story 3, where like Lotso, he is the leader of a band of pets who once had owners before they were abandoned. For the box office, it managed to gross out $368.3 million in the US and Canada and $516.9 million in other countries, making a worldwide total of $885.3 million against its budget of $75 million, and it soon became the 6th highest grossing film of 2016 and is also the 5th highest grossing original worldwide film of all time, behind movies like Avatar, Zootopia, which came out earlier that same year, The Lion King, and Finding Nemo, as well as the 18th highest grossing animated film of all. On November 22nd, just a few months later, The Secret Life of Pets was released on digital HD before getting released on DVD, Blu-ray, Blu-ray 3D, and Ultra HD Blu-ray on December 6th, and in keeping with Illumination's tendency to create shorts based on their films, the DVD also had 2 short films, Norman TV and Weenie, alongside Mower Minions. The movie became the 6th best-selling title of 2016 by making a total of $69.7 million from home media sales, with 3.6 million units sold. Now, getting into my personal thoughts about the movie, I liked it. Yeah, I was hyped to see it when it was first announced, and that hype was heightened by the first theatrical trailer that came out in January of 2016, which had the Macklemore song, Downtown, play over said trailer, which made me a fan of the song, and it was also the first Illumination film that came out when I was attending college. The Secret Life of Pets is proof that sometimes an original concept can be good for a studio, though in the case of this movie, I'd say that it's great.